Hey, y'all. Hey, welcome to the PowerWomen podcast. This is the show where powerful women share their journeys, discuss how to solve powerful issues, and empower men who help us rise. I'm your host, Power Mom, Claire Brown. Hey, y'all. Hey, today I am so excited to share with you our guest that we have today because she is so special to me and I cannot wait to share her journey with you. Shamim Okolloh, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. Claire, this is an honor, and so happy to share this space with you today.
That's what I love about you. You always just overflow with kindness, and I love that about you.
Thank you.
Tell everyone. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you do. You just ooze kindness, and I love that. You do.
Thank you. I think in especially in the world we live in today, but and we'll talk a little bit about my story, but I try to start and end the day with gratitude and looking at things differently, and so yeah. But I appreciate that.
Yeah. So tell everybody, who is Shamim? What does she do? All the things.
So Shamim is Kenyan. And as of May 2022, she is American too.
Yes.
And so I was born and raised in Kenya and very proud of it. I grew up in Nairobi with my family, went to school in Kenya, and just it was a pretty, decent, normal childhood. And came to the U.S. as most immigrants have. The U.S. does a really good job of promoting their image overseas. And we, desire a better life, opportunities. And, I was fortunate to immigrate to the States when I was 19. My older sister was here already in college. And that's kind of where I started. I came to the States. And it's now 22 years. It was supposed to be a 5-year plan for college. They issue 5-year visas. So I was supposed to go to college for 4 years, work 1 year, and, go back to Kenya and build. And 22 years later, I'm still here. And so I am a mother of 2, Liam and Ella. I am now a resident of Arkansas, Little Rock, lived in Atlanta before. I am a HBCU graduate of the #1 HBCU in America, Spelman College. That's what the rankings say. I am a trained scientist. Actually, most people don't know. And so my undergraduate was in environmental science, and I worked on RDX. I had a scholarship and did research for the Department of Defense in my early 20s. And I researched RDX and TNT explosives. They would send them in these little vials from the Department of Defense. And my job was to figure out bacteria that would clean up the water that these explosives are saved in. And so the lab was my space in my early 20s. And at some point, I realized that I did an internship that was eye-opening, and it was great money with the EPA. It was Region 4. It was what I've been trained, right, as an environmental scientist. But I was the only woman and the only person of color in a lab with all white men in Georgia. And I was like, this is 10 weeks, 8 weeks maybe. I cannot do this for the rest of my life. If this is the career outside of college, this isn't it. I'm good. And made a switch from the sciences. I couldn't speak to my bacteria either. I'm very extroverted. So I would research them and their oxygen would drop. And I couldn't go to the lab and be like, hey, yo, what happened yesterday?
It doesn't talk back.
Yeah, like I had my test tubes lined up and I couldn't be like, whoa, what's up?
Yeah.
They could respond to me. So I had to graph it and make a guess. And I was like, this ain't it. This is not the life. And so eventually end up moving to the nonprofit world, got a scholarship to the Clinton School of Public Service. And I think that shifted everything for me. And I was able to move to Arkansas, did not know anybody. And this is my 12th, 13th year here in Arkansas. And my life just took a different turn for the best, I believe, by moving to Little Rock.
Yeah. And you do what now?
I am vice president of, I like that title.
I know.
And I try to say it proudly, especially around children, of community outreach at Encore Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And so I focus on Central Arkansas and Saline County, mostly working with unbanked, underbanked, overlooked, underserved minority community. And here in Little Rock, through Pulaski County, in Central Arkansas, so up until Jacksonville. And it's just been, a very eye-opening looking at the data. And then being able to be boots on the ground and advocate for equity in finance, and so I love my job. But I went from being a scientist to a banker.
I love it. I love it. It's so fantastic. So a lot of things I hear from your story and your journey that you just very, very briefly went over. You came to America, the United States, not knowing anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went to Georgia, not knowing anyone. And then you came to Arkansas, not knowing anyone. That is a lot of courage. A lot of courage. Most people don't take those leaps in life. And so, where was the motivation? What motivated you to do all those things? Where's that drive? What is it that kept you to do that?
Yeah, I think each move had a different motivation. Mm-hmm. So when we were young, it was just better education. When I was applying to college in 1999, we didn't have the internet and all of that. So we would get the college booklets. Mm-hmm. And first it was aesthetics, right? It was like, oh, all their grass is green in the same size. This is beautiful buildings. I want to go to America. And just get a better education, what we had seen before. And so that was the motivation, was just to get higher education in a country that had top-notch, education system, what we thought. And then initially actually started in Pennsylvania and moved to Georgia. And, we had a small Kenyan community. And so that's kind of where my sister had some friends, and I moved to Georgia. But then it was a Kenyan community. And so being at Spelman with, Morehouse and Clark Atlanta kind of opened me up to the African-American community. Mm-hmm. And, most people say, oh, there's tension between Africans and African-Americans. And that world actually made me understand a little bit more of the culture and the history and the tragic history of slavery, because growing up in Kenya, we just learned that slavery was a triangular trade. The end. It was a transaction.
Speak on that, because I know you and I discussed that. I found that fascinating.
Yeah.
To learn what I've learned, what I didn't learn, what was omitted from our history lessons in school, and then as an African, what you learned and what was omitted from your history lessons.
That part.
Yeah.
And so Kenya is a British colony. And so even if we gained independence in the 60s, it was still British curriculum, very heavy neocolonialism. And so the books are printed in Britain,
Right.
And so they're going to dictate what is in the school system and so have an influence. And so to my recollection, it was just a trade. It was like, these are the Africans in the village and the communities that are kind of the troublemakers anyway. Mm-hmm. So we're going to send them. They were, removed from the community, like similar to like they would have gone to jail anyway. So we just did this trade, and they were exchanged for booze and guns, the chiefs. but they were the troublemakers, right? And that's how they were classified. And I guess just to remove the connection and the humanity from it.
Yeah.
And so they would go to the US, and the US had cotton, and they would work the cotton field. But the Brits, Europe, needed the cotton for raw material. And it was a triangular trade, the end, 30 minutes. Like, we didn't spend time on it. That's how I knew it.
Right.
So at Spelman, we had also take this class of African diaspora in the world, and it went deeper into it, and the journey and the torture and the conditions, and the families being split. And, and I was in this class, and everybody's looking at me for answers because I'm from Africa. And I was like, first of all, I'm from East Africa. This is
That's the wrong part.
I was like, this happened in West Africa. The slaves from East Africa, they went to Dubai and the months. I don't know. I'm so sorry. It was not my people, but it was my people. Try to separate. Yeah. And, just really understanding. So that opened me up a little bit. But in Georgia, it was, again, just pursuing world-class, education at Spelman. But then the challenge became, after 9/11, the system changed for immigrants, students. And before, we could take off a year with no report, no repercussion. But after 9/11, we had to register within 30 days with the USCIS. And at Spelman, I was scholarship self-funded. And it was easier for me to raise money to go home rather than meet my financial obligation to the college to register within 30 days and then be out of status. And so that was challenging. And so I went back to Kenya. I was fortunate enough to work at the United Nations there. And I remember seeing a story in the news, and it was on prostitution in the city in downtown Nairobi. And one of the girls was being interviewed, or young ladies, and she was a student at the University of Nairobi. And that's how she paid for her college tuition in Kenya. And I was like, man, I had never thought about going to dance at Magic City. I had to write scholarships and kind of work and take the bus, different things. But my body, just to get an education, realizing that I thought I had it really hard at Spelman and in Atlanta, but I actually had it easier compared to my peers, because we did have scholarship foundations available and, different corporations. So I came back to the States that summer. I remember going to UNCF and knocking on their doors and being like, hey, I was in Glamour magazine among top 10 college women. Just help me finish my college.
No, wait a minute. You just said something. Go back. You were in Glamour magazine.
I was. I was among the top 10 college women in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And
what?
I was featured for, again, I was chasing a scholarship and I made it. And so for my work in water, I tell my story about losing my father, and, he was sick at the time and I didn't know, but I had typhoid and malaria. And so I couldn't be with him his last few days in hospital because I was battling typhoid and malaria, and typhoid is a waterborne disease. Mm-hmm. And he was gone. And so
your father was suffering from
HIV and AIDS. Mm-hmm. And so, but he hadn't disclosed it. We just kind of figured it out. And so, but then I had known or suspected what was going on, but I still couldn't be there with him those last days, right? And I was 18. I was really young. And so it really bothered me that dirty water that I drank took away
your opportunity to be present. Yeah, I hear you.
And
I know. And then you go on to be a scientist to study water.
Correct. And then all the scientists don't look like me.
That's right.
And I can't connect. And so something that was supposed to help me, kind of make sure other Africans don't kind of, it's not an issue in the States, right? I never heard of anybody having typhoid. And having this dream and coming and getting it crushed because there's no women in STEM, and, there's the disparities, was kind of hard, but I knew, like, I'm in America now, I have to kind of think more strategically. And this might be something that was personal for me, but it might not be the path for me just because of what I experienced, with losing my dad. But then I came back, and that's why I say I think with every move, it was kind of different. And, in Atlanta, going through all of that, I ended up in a relationship that had early signs of domestic, violence. So I had to get out of that. Put my status in jeopardy, and so I was trying to get out of this marriage and stay alive, and go through immigration and deportation. I went to deportation court 3 times, and it was hard. And so when the day I got my green card approval was the same day I went home that afternoon. And in the mail, there was a letter from the Clinton School that said, "Congratulations" in the top. And, welcome to class 6 and all of this. And it was a full scholarship. And like March 31st, 2010 changed my life. And so I could leave Atlanta with all that had been brewing there and move to Arkansas, where I didn't know anybody. They didn't know my story. And I had a clean slate to start.
Right.
And I packed my suitcases, jumped on a plane to Memphis, and took the Greyhound bus at 3 a.m. to Little Rock. And here I am.
You have so much determination, so much perseverance, so much courage, so much grit. So when you hear stories or victimhood that people have, of how they are struggling, and when I say victimhood, you can replace that with whining.
Yeah.
What is your response? What does it make you feel?
It's hard because I wear 2 lenses, right? So it's hard because I can say, hey, I understand. I went through what, I had to go to therapy. I had to choose me, and that was uncomfortable, and be okay in loneliness, and work it out, figure it out, get a job, get busy, get a hobby, everything that all of it. But then I also know that there, women or people in similar situations that were not blessed enough to have a system that worked for them. And so, somebody told me, hey, if you were in Kenya, I could have had your head in the wall as they were holding me.
Right.
Because they knew in the States they could call the police, so I could call the police, and that's different. But in Kenya, the women don't have that same right and protection that I would have had. And so I see it both ways because I look at things from a global perspective. And I know that, women in wealth is a challenge. And so, yeah, you can get out and get yourself, but where are you going?
Right.
You cannot liquidate an asset to move in and pay 3 months rent. And I cannot work in banking. You can't just have no job as a stay-at-home mother and go buy a house. Like, we need work history. And, and so it is, I think I just take my story, and I remember my friends who probably think I was so dumb and told me multiple times, you should do this and you should do that. And I didn't move. And so then I try not to judge people with their situations, but then to just remind where I can, to have compassion and say, it can get better. You can choose your own path and you can write your own story, and whatever that means to you might be different for somebody else. But if you would use my case, right? As I had all the things against me. I have a Muslim name when everything was going on with an Islamic name. I have this and this and this and this, and here I am. I'm a single mom, and so it it's easy to say you could do it too, but it's also very difficult because the circumstances just vary. But yeah, so I understand it because I've played that victim role too and victimhood, but then I'm very fortunate that I'm on the other side now, and I try to look at it from a different light.
You have so much grace in you, Shamim. You do. You
Yeah.
do. So much grace. And so,
And
you and I.
Claire, when I was going through deportation court, um, and they arrested me and they took me down to the holding cell,
Mhm.
man, and I got out that day, and they said, you have no record, we'll send you home and you can just come to court. That when I walked out of that building in Atlanta and I tasted the air and I sat on the bench and I was free, right? Like, I don't know what it's like to I don't know if I would have survived. I don't know. I know people do, when they go to jail and stuff. But I mean, my experiences have just been like, whew, okay, Shamim, get yourself together, like.
Okay. Okay. We got that over with. We're done.
Okay, cool. I ain't fooling with the law no more. I ain't trying to go back to the holders. It was no joke. Like seeing that reality, but then I've never experienced like a medical condition that oh my children. Like I've never experienced that too, and so how would I sit with the mom who has a child at ACH? Going through easily. I feel like I couldn't, right?
No.
But I can sit with immigrants because I understand that piece. And that's what I'm saying. Those circumstances just vary. And when you think you're on top, there's going to be a life situation that's going to humble you really quick.
Right. So, you and I, when we spoke the other day, we talked about, and I've had these hurdles, as a woman and applying for business loans and all kinds of things. And the difference is though, is that I'm not a woman of color.
Yeah.
And, I of course I love opening this conversation. It's a passion of mine. And you're the one to do it. And I love the fact that you are a woman of color in the commercial banking world, which
Yeah.
is, as we've discussed, is a rarity. It is
Yeah.
not common. And so breaking into that space is something I love. I think it's fantastic. And so, when you and I've discussed, when men and women of color are coming to you and saying, I think you put it great. You said, that we go to, Thanksgiving and someone says, that's the best mac and cheese ever. You should market that. You should sell that by the pint. And they're like,
Yep.
yes, I'm going to get a food truck and I'm going to do it.
I'm going to get an LLC. That's normally where it stops.
Right. And so, which I love mac and cheese, especially since I can't have dairy now. It's all I want is mac and cheese all the time, So, but how does that look? What happens when someone comes to you? You described it so beautifully for me. You described the disparity.
Yeah.
And I want to dive into that because that's what needs to change.
So there is a graph of data from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, which is our regulator here in Little Rock for Arkansas. And it's a graph that shows the wealth gap on women-headed households of color. And for every dollar that a Caucasian male has, Claire, you're second on that chart with 51 cents. And this is wealth. This is not wage gap. This is wealth gap.
There's a big difference.
Yes. And so for each dollar, you're second in line with 51 cents. And then it kind of jumps to 20s for Hispanic male, and then a black man has 19 cents, a Hispanic woman has 10 cents or 9 cents, I believe, and then a black woman has 5 cents. And so between you and me, according to the data, you have 46 cents more wealth than I do. The commercial banking world is mostly men, white men. They have $1 to my one. So that disparity is 95 cents. And so this is not feelings. This is not emotions. This is not politics.
No,
this is
it's numbers.
It's numbers. And so one of the things in the commercial banking space, and I do both commercial and mortgage, but on the commercial side with small business side, is there is a lack or a very small number of people of color who are commercial loan officers, who are the credit analysts, underwriters, who are the loan review. And so the discussions and decisions up and down that track doesn't have that representation, but more so, there's cultural nuances. And we play where we play, and we hang out with who we hang out. And I don't think sometimes it's a racist thing. It's just our tribe. People hang with their tribe, and so you got these two tribes within minorities and the people who tend to be in the commercial space that don't kick it in the same space. Not some, some places is going to collide, but it's just culturally, there's going to be that disparity. But then historically, we have that disparity, right? Right. With redlining and the neighborhoods and everything, yep, making it even harder. The wealth gap, making it different neighborhoods. And so it's very rare for these people to collide. And so when you have fewer people in the commercial space that have the training, have the knowledge, have the toolkit, and I go to Thanksgiving and a cousin or a friend has an idea. Most people say, yeah, girl, go ahead, do it, sell some plates, get your LLC, the end. Me, now that I'm familiar with the commercial banking world, I give her 10 things she needs to do. You know what I mean? It's like, listen, before you even generate $1, we need LLC, EIN, a bank account. You got to separate those two. You need a business plan. You need bookkeeping. That is the biggest gap.
But
it's
yes,
really
because bookkeeping is not Venmo.
No.
It's not Cash App.
It's not Cash App. Now you can receive a business. Cash App has a business account, and you can route it from your Cash App, because I run a business on the side, because you can run it from a business Cash App to your business bank account, and there's no fee. It goes straight, right? And I look at it, I'll be, doop, doop, it's in that business account. Mm-hmm. So you can route it into a financial industry, but we cannot take a Cash App and make a business decision out of it. We got to look at the statements and different other things. And so, for me to be very fortunate, here at Encore Bank, they have invested in me. I'm going to banking school thanks to the bank. And so I'm able to have the exposure into what net interest means and all of this commercial world and language. And, a cash flow, and understand what a spread means to the bank.
Right.
And what my minority female entrepreneur and her mac and cheese, and I got to make these two languages work. I got to, my banker we're going to do deals at the bank. And my entrepreneur, she's got a dream. And how do I translate this dream to this space with cultural nuances included? And how do I make this dreamer be ready for a deal? And when those two sides connect, then it's magic. But it's more work on this side, getting, this entrepreneur who's a minority ready for the deal, right? Ready, understanding their Schedule C, understanding how to have assets and collateral and what that means, and understanding bookkeeping and tracking expenses. And it's okay to be profitable. It is okay to pay into taxes. That's why you got to get commercial real estate, like how to manage the tax code and grow your business. And so the other side has it better. They have attorneys, they have CPAs, they have the systems in place. And it's just harder, in a community that normal cash flow and profit and loss statements is an everyday language, to normalize that for my clients and sit and I listened to a dream yesterday for 2 hours. And I had to be like, all right, girl, I'm going to need you to do this and this and this and this. And I'm going to touch base with you in 2 weeks. And then we can go from there. But you're not ready. I understand where you are, but we got a little bit of work to get you to be lender ready for that. And so, but that's how we build wealth, right? And empowering the women, where the mothers, we carry the community, we nurture the community. And so giving them the knowledge and the wealth and the toolkits to make it tangible from just a dream to hard cash dollars. I can talk about it all day. I love it.
I know. Me too. And I'm not a woman of color, and I don't know. I mean, and I've never been to business school. Yeah. So what I can say and attest to is that when I got divorced 8 years ago, my ex-husband was a businessman who did all that. And I had never paid a bill in my life. I didn't know about investing. I didn't know about anything. Yeah. And now there's the internet and online banking, and I didn't even have my own. I didn't know how to even log into any of it. And so, and so I went through that too.
Yes.
And that's why I got into business coaching. Yes. To learn and have someone teach me, mold me, make me, tell me. I hired it. It was the best money I've ever spent.
And I tell people all the time, invest in those coaches or, the CPA, the bookkeeper. You're passionate about your mac and cheese is great, but understand the business side of the business. The numbers is very intimidating to us, but it will make you a powerful woman. Your platform when you can, on a high level, understand the numbers of your business, understand why it's important to have a will. Understand why it's important to have life insurance. Understand why it's important to just do all of this that we're not usually. In African culture, it's way different, because it's very male patriarchy. And so coming from that culture, and now I'm raising a daughter, I'm very African. I'm raising little Black kids from Arkansas, Baptist Health. It hurts me so much. I'm like, ooh, their passports say Arkansas. But, I'm very proud of mine. Well, I have an American passport now, but my Kenyan passport says Kenya. And, Arkansas doesn't have the best data in terms of education and everything. And so I try to leave this space where they can be proud to say, I'm from Arkansas, the way I'm proud to say, this, but then having them understand what an asset is and I do this for my clients too. I tell them, bring your babies to the closing, right? Bring your babies to the meeting so that whatever you're building and setting up, that next generation can preserve it. They're not just going to sell it off. They can preserve it, maintain it, and build up on it. Like Rockefeller, he gone. But then there's a
whole foundation. There's a whole foundation.
It's growing. In our communities, it shrinks. And so how can we help, women
build legacy,
be comfortable with numbers, even if you have a partner or a husband and they're able to take care of that. And that's great. Kind of sit down with them every month and have office hours, in the marriage and say, okay, baby, what's going on? What's coming in? What's going out? Okay. And this so that you're aware, especially if you're raising daughters, let them see that. And I don't want to change a tire. I don't want to learn. Some of my siding is coming out, and I was like, I hate it. I'm a single woman. I don't want to go up a ladder. I don't like. The Lord didn't make me to do this kind of stuff.
No, me either. My Christmas tree is still in my foyer, and it is now September. So you know what? It's gonna stay there till December.
Mine came off in March, and I had to get a smaller one because I needed somebody to help me with the big one. I was like, I ain't got time for this. This is and so I love being feminine and soft and all of that good stuff. But I'm having to learn because I'm raising a boy and a girl,
Right.
and having them to be able to coexist in this world and have those toolkits. But then it is just a harder climb for African Americans. They don't, in the Black community, Black and brown, we don't want anything for free. Like I work hard for where I've gotten to, and I've been very fortunate for opportunities. I've been very fortunate for people who believe in me, even in moments, Miguel, in moments that I didn't even believe in myself. How did I go from me being in deportation in a cell
Right.
to a vice president? Like,
Yeah.
and I try to lift as I climb,
Yes,
and
you
it's been a
do.
joy. Yeah.
You do. You do. You do. And so, I mean, I could go on and on about you all day long. I could. I mean, if
I
you're
love
ever
hanging out
having a
with
bad
you
day,
too.
if you are ever having a bad day, I am the one to call you.
Yes.
I am the one for you to call.
Yeah. And I appreciate you too because you do so much for our community, Claire. You don't have to. You run a business and you're a mother and have family, and to take time away to convene and be a safe space, for women of all races and ages and color and experiences. And we can, I love seeing the different, on PowerWomen group, and it's so warming when somebody jumps in and like within 45 minutes
I
it's been
know.
solved for.
Yeah, it
And
is.
it's a gift that you have convened that space for us. And so kudos to you too.
Well, I know there is so much to learn. I have a very, very heightened awareness of my privilege,
Yeah.
and the privilege of that group too.
Yes.
The privilege of
Yes.
this platform,
Yeah.
um, so much, and I continue to learn about that. And I think these are my thoughts, that it's my obligation to continue to learn about that, to be curious about that, to have even more awareness of it
Yeah.
in order to leverage it
Yep.
for others.
Yes.
That's my part, my job, what I can do, because I want to learn, I want to understand, so that I can then be of help more. If
Yeah.
I don't, then I'm no good.
And I think that's why I feel like, even when we met the other day, I felt like you were my sister because you get it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the same thing with me. If I sat with my title, yeah, I'm at our beautiful branch, in Chanel, and I was just comfortable in the office. I have a platform,
Mhm.
and I have an obligation, because I get a check every 2 weeks. But beyond that, I think it's just purpose filled and purpose driven
Yeah,
to understand that even within the community, I am at this place of privilege,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I have the 2 degrees. I have a company that has great work culture. I have friends that are supportive, and I have learned to now have a high yield savings account. I didn't know what a high yield savings account was until I came to Concord. And then I was like, why do they keep talking about this money market? What is he talking about? And I would go and Google it. The internet is great. I was
Oh,
like,
that looks
oh, okay.
good.
Yeah. And then I started seeing billboards. I was like, what? 4.5%, 5.5? Okay, I can do this money market thing too,
Sign me up.
And I did. And it was scary because it's like, well, what if I need to access that money? Well, you can't access that money for So
Yeah,
it wasn't until this year, and I'm 42,
right.
that I set up a high yield savings account and I set up my first CD. And the CD, I only did it for 9 months because because like again, financial trauma is real and that
Oh,
scarcity
yeah.
mindset is real.
It
But
is.
then if I'm doing it at 42 and learning what a high yield savings and money market account is, and my daughter who's 8, but then the community and the women I touch every day, and I can tell them this is what I did, work for you, talk to your banker, go
Yeah.
up to your branch and ask them, look at their rates. If it's something that you could do, move some money there and keep it.
Right.
It's such like I said, I can talk about as a woman who had a 536 credit score in 2016 when I wanted to buy my house. And you're a realtor, so you know this. I
do.
couldn't do nothing with it. From 536 to being able to talk about owning a home and even a money market is mind blowing to me. But it's a blessing and a privilege similar to you. And I try to use that platform to educate others.
Right. And you do. And you do it with such grace and seamless beauty. I am so grateful to call you friend.
Thank you. Me too.
I
Me too.
am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for just being who you are so transparently, for using everything you've been through for goodness and to share with others to change the world, because that's what we're called to do. And we see in others what we see in ourselves, Shamim.
Yes.
And I'm able to see so much in you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In Swahili,
love
we
you.
say asante. I'll teach you Swahili today.
Okay.
In Swahili, we say thank you is asante.
Asante.
Yep.
I love that. But mostly, I thank you so much for your time. I am very aware of that. It is your most valuable commodity.
Yes. I appreciate the platform. I, wish you good health and continued and, just being fabulous and the firecracker that you are. Because I think, people say being an ally is one thing, and I'm an ally, and I'm be a, internet this, but you leave that, you know what I mean? You leave that world of saying I'm an ally, and I'm a lock in together. I'm going to understand my place and acknowledge my privilege, but I'm going to use my space to uplift other people.
Absolutely.
And so for me to come to you and be with you and feel comfortable as a woman of color, having a conversation with a sister who's a white woman doesn't happen every day. It's very magical for me. And so I want to thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope we have a lot more of them.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Thank you so much. How can people reach you if they want to do banking business with you? If they want to learn more of you and your story and how to help? And I think you should just go on a big speaking tour, is what I think.
Yeah, that would be great. If I have the time, we can do it. But, they can reach me. Actually, Encore Bank, we try to have relational banking. We don't have a call center. And so usually I give my cell phone. And so it is I can be reached on my email. You can find me if you look up Shamim Okolloh. You'll pull me up and you find me on LinkedIn, on social media, but I'm easily accessible for those who want to find me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Shamim.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, please rate and review on iTunes and check out our website, thepowerwomen.org.